Hello skaters out there, thanks a lot for tuning in. Today's video is pretty exciting if you ask me, because I will be comparing the speed skates that I usually wear. I'll compare those to a semi-speed or high-end fitness skate and compare that to an urban slash entry level fitness skate. They're all from Rollerblade. You can check the links below. In this video I'm just going to test how fast they actually go for you guys to understand which skate you should choose next. I'll also give a little bit of my personal experience using these skates. In order to do this test, I came up with a protocol. I will be skating for 10 minutes on each skate. I'll be wearing a heart rate monitor, obviously a GPS watch so I can monitor the speed, and then I'm gonna try and determine the intensity using my Grasport muscle oxygen device here, which I find to be more precise than the heart rate because it really gives you a live indication just on how hard or how exhausting a sport is. So I'm going to be skating here, as you can see, on this pretty decent 300-meter road track. We're in Slagelse, my own hometown in Denmark. My guess is that the speed skates here, I'll go off with a heart rate of 135. I chose that heart rate because that's where I'm comfortable. That's a pace where I know I can execute things technically well, and there won't be any carry-over fatigue from one test to another. Obviously, if I went for an all-out test, I would need much more rest, and it would have an influence which skate I went on with first. I've been skating a little bit on all three of these skates lately, so I do feel like I'm suited to really compare them well. So obviously I'm a speed skater, so I do have a preference, but there's not one of them that I'm more trained on than the others. So I do really think it's gonna be fair. I can already tell you now, we're gonna find out that the speed skates are faster. That's why speed skaters, the fastest skaters, they use those, even though the other ones can be more comfortable and you can feel more agile on them. That said though, it doesn't mean it's the perfect skate for you. There is a lot of good reasons why you would want to start with a skate like this. It is more comfortable, smaller wheels, they're 84mm wheels, which allows you to steer better. On the other hand, you've got the big wheels here, but still some support with the higher cuff, whereas speed skates give you very little support in that way, but more freedom to move. That said, freedom is only nice as a skater if you have the strength and the skills to control it. The first test, now I'm already on my speed skates, so why don't we just start at that? 10 minutes, control pace, heart rate 135, which should correspond to some muscle oxygen levels about 30-35%. That's what I'm gonna go off with all three of them. Of course, I'll take a long rest in between the three so we can properly compare them. My best guesses would be 33 kilometers an hour for the speed skates, about 30 for these BOA ref skates, and then for the Macroblade, I would say somewhere around 23 kilometers an hour. But there's only one way to find out. Let's go. Speed skates first. That's the first test, 10 minutes. Turned out to be 33.3 kilometers per hour with the speed skates and an average heart rate of 131, which is, I think, pretty close to 135 once I got up to speed. Of course, it was a bit lower, started around 70, so it takes a while. And muscle oxygen wise, the average was 27.5. Got a bit easier throughout, which is usually the case. Another reason to train with the Grasport device. You can really monitor that as you do a workout, because it's not just a stable thing, even though heart rate or pace might be. So speed skates is obviously my preferred skates. They're super easy for me. 135 heart rate is what I can do for at least 150 kilometers, so it wasn't that exhausting. What I like about speed skates is that freedom, so I feel more relaxed on these because there's nothing limiting my movements, which for most skaters is not the case. You can be very shaky around the ankles, it can be difficult for the knees to stay on top, and it can just be very hard for the back. But for me, because this is what I'm used to, it's pretty smooth. Next step is the BOAs here, the BOA Ref or the Ref BOA, and we'll see how that compares. I'm pretty excited. I personally really find these comfortable, but I don't know if that's gonna make me any faster. But we'll see that in a second. It's only 10 minutes. I do also think that the faster you go, the bigger a difference it makes, which is the case if you go in a big pack. Of course, you're gonna go faster because there's gonna be the draft. Same goes for a tailwind, downhill, you name it. And this is also not a super difficult track or area in terms of, you know, not as agility or skills demanding, which is also in favor of, I would say probably these skates. It's a tricky thing because bigger wheels are harder to turn with, so if you do more crossovers, narrow turns, it's more difficult. But I would also say these are more agile in the way that you can steer because you don't have any limitations here. So it's really a hard thing to describe, but it depends on your level. The test on the ref skates was quite a lot faster and quicker than I had expected. It was 31.8 kilometers per hour average speed, which is surprisingly close to the speed skates. I honestly expected them to be not that fast. It did really feel similar, to be honest, on the straightaways, and I'm pretty sure they would almost keep up with the speed skates. The downside to these, if we compare them to speed, is the weight. I would definitely say the weight. They feel slightly more, you know, it takes more work to get them going into turns. The crossover isn't as smooth. That could also be due to the higher cuff, but the straights were super nice actually, and I felt like it was easy to keep that rhythm and the flow. So the same wheel size does really make up for the extra weight almost entirely. So that was interesting. Muscle oxygen pretty close to the same, 26 for this one, and yeah, heart rate 132, so pretty identical. The BOA ref skates are nice in that way that they are a good in between the speed and the fitness, best of both worlds. So you get the carbon shell from a speed skate, you get that same power transfer, and then you still do have some freedom because the cuff allows you to move, get a little more dorsiflexion, and bend your legs basically a little more, so you can get pretty close to how a speed skater. As you can see from the videos here, my technique is close to identical, which is nice. Same wheel size, you got the option of switching your frames. So for me, it's close to what I'm comfortable with already, the same frame. So equipment wise, we're still at the othermost high end in skating. The only difference is you get more support in the BOA refs. Now I will hop in these ones and see how fast they can go. I'm expecting to take a lot more steps because they do not have the same roll, even though the bearings are decent. The macro blades are very comfortable, for sure no blisters in these, however they were much slower. I was still impressed by the speed though. I went 27.1 kilometers per hour for average speed with these guys, which honestly felt a lot slower because I'd just been on the other ones, but really nice skates, comfortable, much faster than I expected, especially to people that are not as accustomed to speed skates as I am. These are really not a bad pick. So 27.1, heart rate 129, and the muscle oxygen was actually a bit higher on these. I do think that's linked to the faster step pattern, so there's a little more better blood flow through the lower body parts on these skates. Also quite light, partly because of the smaller wheels, or because it's not a, you know, full carbon cuff. Here's just plastic around the foot. So impressed by the macro blade. The macro blade skates as our, well, I would say entry level, at least if you care about quality. Then we have the macro blades. The smaller wheels obviously make a massive difference. You won't have the same power transfer as well, and definitely not the same roll. That said, I do like the agility of them. You can switch directions easier than you can imagine, especially if you've been on speed skates for a long time, which is more fun, especially if you skate in the city, in the urban areas. That's a big plus in my book. However, when we're looking at things like this, a time trial when cruise speed is the goal, well, it's pretty obvious that we're not going to go as fast. You can see I need a lot more steps, and I can't fully extend the same way because you simply just don't get as much out of each push, which is why you will also notice here that I do change my technique quite a bit to adapt to the smaller wheel sizes and the fact that I simply just don't have the same angle mobility in the macro blades. Sum up, looking at the three skates, we have my speed skates, the Nitro Blade, as custom molded carbon skates, 33.3 kilometers per hour, all of it with identical heart rate and close to identical muscle oxygen. 33.3 kilometers per hour in the speed skates, 125 millimeters. The refs also 125, yet the higher cuff and what we call a semi-speed was 31.8. So we got 1.5 kilometers per hour speed difference. And then finally, if we look at the fitness skates, the urban skates, the street skates, the macro blades, we do see quite the gap of almost 5 kilometers per hour. So for a beginner, they would be ideal. If you do have the desire to go faster, if you actually skate as a sport and not just every now and then I suggest the BOA ref skate. And if you want to do this as a competition kind of thing, like I do, then of course you should get some speed skates, but take it step by step. If you want to know how to bridge the gap between those steps, and if your goal is really just to go as fast as you can, I made a training plan for you. You'll find it in the description below. It's called Fitness to Speed, and it basically just teaches you all the skills, including some cardio stuff and a bit of strength, but mainly just all the skills it takes to be a good speed skater. And that's about it. I hope this was either fun or informative, or at least maybe a little bit inspirational, so that you know how fast you would be able to go if you had the right equipment, and hopefully a push towards getting the right equipment. I am Victor Thorpe. This was a lot of fun, and I just hope to see you for my next videos. See you around.